Jey Meka's channel. Jey Meka's channel. Jey Meka's channel. Jey Meka's channel.
Hey y'all, welcome to Jey and Meka's channel. As you can see, it's just me. Jey is out for today, so I will be covering the season finale for Life After Lockup. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to start with, JK and Brooke. So the last episode ended off with Brooke storming through JK's house, pissing his parents off, all outside. Somebody called the police. I don't know who called the police. But it continues with this episode where Brooke continues to confront JK, and he ends up telling her that he was at Alex's house when she was calling him, and she wants to know why. So he went ahead and told her that Alex is pregnant. And so he doesn't know if it's his or not yet because the baby's not born yet. And so they get into it some more. She obviously gets even more upset, and she ends up slapping him because he says that the reason why, he's been acting the way he's been acting is because pretty much he's been, getting down with his ex, Alex, behind Brooke's back. So that's where the slap came from. That's pretty much where it ended. They went their separate ways. JK went in the house. His mom told him he needs to leave Brooke alone, that's toxic. He can end back up in jail. And then they show Brooke, I guess maybe a few months later, driving to Galveston with her sons, and she's moving. And during that drive, she gets a phone call, and it's a collect call, and it's from a prison. It's a guy on the other end of the phone. Her kids are in the car. It's on speaker. And so she is continuing to do the same thing over again, even though she said she wanted something different. It actually ended with them telling us that she's talking to several inmates. So, okay, bro. So next up, we have Letitia and Keith. They basically have a little small argument about wedding plans. She wants a wedding. Keith is taking it as she wants a really big wedding. And Letitia is kind of I just want you to recommit to me, because basically how they got married was they signed a paper. They didn't exchange vows or anything like that. She obviously didn't have a dress. The family wasn't there, none of that. So she wants something special. And they kind of get into it because I think Keith it's a misunderstanding. He doesn't realize that she probably would be okay with just something just to show his love for her. So their anniversary was going to be in the next 3 days. So he basically ended up putting something together for her, a vow renewal, I would say. His dad was the officiant. The kids were there. It was cute, and I think it really made her happy. And that's kind of how their story ended off. They did provide an update. After taping, Letitia was arrested, and then she got out of jail, but there were some other charges that are pending, so we don't know much about that right now. So next up is Kiana, Demadric, and Joella. This episode was basically them riding around in a car because Joella actually wanted to meet up with Kiana, as basically saying that if she can meet up with Kiana, she would consider dropping the charges. So she sent Demadric her location, an address for them to all meet and talk. And this episode was them kind of riding around in the car, deciding where they're going to go. Kiana did not want to go. Demadric felt like maybe it would be a good thing to do, but Kiana was adamant. He supported Kiana in that. They did not go and meet up with Joella. So she was at the restaurant for a while, and then she left because they never showed up. She went to a house. I don't know where this house was because it wasn't Kiana's normal house. This was a different house. She showed up at this house and knocked on the door. Kiana came outside. They asked that the cameras be cut, but the audio was still on, so we could hear them arguing outside and whatnot. Had a little exchange. Nothing physical, just some back and forth. Kiana came back in the house. Joella left. It ends off with Joella basically saying, it's on Kiana what she want to do with Demadric. That's none of her business. She's ready to move on with her life, and that's it. She did end up dropping the charges, and that was the end of their story. Up next, we have Michael and Justine. They went to New York so Justine could try on wedding dresses and they could look at venues and whatnot. And when they got there, it was pretty, they realized, or well, Justine, I think, and he definitely realized that this wedding was going to be really, really expensive and they probably couldn't afford it. But he hadn't told Justine that yet. And there was something else he hadn't just told Justine. And they kind of was like making us wait for that. They were almost trying to make it seem like he had went back into the drug game or something like that. But what they did show is that he was kind of struggling with being at home. Like, they live in Vegas now, they're from New York. And you could visibly see that he was uncomfortable, kind of maneuvering around in his, past area, like where he used to live. He just didn't seem very comfortable. But he eventually ended up telling Justine that, hey, we can't afford this. We had some things go down with our business. The business needs like a new car or something like that. And I would say that Justine was pretty understanding, which is different from the past episodes. Her thing was, she was like, so why didn't you tell me? This is for our business. This is a business that we both invested in. You could have just told me. So she came around, and that pretty much was their story, update for them. Their daughter, who was in high school, she was a senior, she graduated, and she went off to college, which was another big reason why Michael was like kind of just hesitant to spend all this money, because he knew that he had, some kids that were going into college. They have 9 kids. I always have to ask Jay this, but they have like 9 kids. I believe that's a lot of kids. And so, yeah, that was the end of their story. They had a brief update about Bianca, which I believe we touched on in another episode. Let's see. Daniel, he wasn't able to keep the apartment. Duh. Like, he couldn't afford it. He ended up going to stay in a halfway house. I saw online that he actually ended up having to go to jail at a certain point after taping. Bianca moved back to Florida, where her family is. An update for her that I also saw online is she is in a new relationship and she's pregnant. So congratulations to her. And they've moved on with their lives. So that was that. And then we have Will and Courtney. What ends up happening with them there, again, they met up at some house. Will is upset because they pretty much had slept together within that last few days of them, I guess, doing this meetup. And she shows up with another guy. He assumes that she slept with the other guy. Courtney never says whether she did or not, but it's pretty much we think she did. I don't know. But they kind of get into it during this little meetup. And they basically put a bow on their stuff. I mean, they didn't show him like signing divorce papers or anything like that, but it pretty much was implied that they're over. Courtney lacked accountability, didn't show any type of empathy. She was just really kind of rude and condescending. So, it was probably best that they go ahead and move on from each other, and that's what they did. So and then we have one more couple, and our last couple is Troy and Sahara. Sahara's pregnant, and they invite his mom out to their house so they can tell her. And at this point, they kind of fast forward quite a bit. It's like some months later, and she's out there, like she's pregnant. So they bring the mom over, and if y'all have seen Troy's mom, she is kind of a character. She say what she mean what she say. She don't have no type of filter. She was upset with Troy because she felt like Troy was telling people that he didn't love her. I don't think that is that she doesn't love him. I just think that's how she communicates, and so. And not to say like he hasn't gone through anything because of his mom, because I'm sure he has based off of what he said or whatever. But yeah, they ended up telling her that Zara's pregnant, and she went off on some tangent and said a bunch of out-of-pocket stuff. But then eventually, like within like 5 minutes, and she tends to do that, it's like a lot of highs and lows with her. And so like she calmed down, and then she was rubbing Zara's belly, and she seemed excited about the baby. And she did say that she did not trust his wife at first, but coming to his house and, seeing her pregnant and that he's happy, that she said that's all she wanted. And so that made her happy. So that was their end of their story. And we are done with Life After Lockup for this season. It was an interesting season, as always. Keep looking out on our socials. We tend to kind of, put stuff up about the couples still, even after we end these shows or whatever. And so, yeah, just keep looking out. Let us know what you think of this finale. It was kind of lackluster, but, we got some good updates or whatever. And yeah, follow us on all of our socials. We're Jey and Meka on everything. YouTube, Jey and Meka channel on YouTube, TikTok and Instagram, Jey and Meka, Facebook, Jey and Meka channel. So yeah, talk to y'all next time.